Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hello and welcome to the Dork Forest. It's Jackie Kashian. I'm standing while doing this intro. You know the websites, JackieKashian.com, DorkForest.com, TheDorkForest.com, FamilyPetAncestry.com. Recently, Joe Wilson has let go DorkForestRadio.com, which led everybody directly to Blog Talk Radio, which were the first, 5 years of this show, maybe 6. Anyway, math is hard. I am here to bring to you the finest dorkdoms in all the world, or at least people who love things a lot. There we go. Let's do the credits. Patrick Brady is going to fix this audio. Mike Rickberg composed and sang that song you just heard at the beginning, and he will sing his lyrics to the Mexican Hat Dance at the end of the program. Vilmos fixes my website, JackieKashian.com, and you can go to DorkForest.com. You can go to iTunes and download the show and everything. And DorkForest.com has for free the bonus that Libsyn, for some reason, created to go only on the app and then put it on the website. So I just move it over to the new website, DorkForest.com. Anyway, it's a fascinating story. I'll tell it again at the end. But here's the scoop. On both Dork Forest and Jackie Kashian, there is a donation button. Feel free to use it. If you enjoy the program and want to donate to the show, click on it. And I'd love to get $100 from everybody a year. If you have $100, $10 a month, I haven't made that easy. You'd have to remember. Or you can give it to me all at once. You can give me more than $100. You can give me less than $100 if you don't have $100. Feel free to just tell people about the Dork Forest and how much you like it. You can also get merch and fly your dork flag that way, Rangers. JackieKashian.com has 2 different kinds of Dork Forest t-shirts. There's the black Ranger t-shirt, and there's the green the Dork Forest t-shirt. The brown one's being discontinued. I still have some. You can email me, Jackie@JackieKashian.com, to see if I have any left. But I mostly do them at the live shows. Speaking of live shows, I do stand-up comedy. You can get the schedule there of where I'm doing stand-up comedy. You can follow me on Twitter at Jackie Kashian. And I'm constantly talking about it. So there's that. There is a chance to buy my CDs and my DVD on JackieKashian.com. You can download the DVD, just the video of it, at ComedyFilmNerds.com in their store, just to download, $10. Or you can buy a hard copy from me. And you can get the CDs, Bread, Circus People, and Horcrux, all on Amazon or iTunes, or you can just listen to them for free on Pandora and Spotify. I get a little bit of a kickback. Speaking of a kickback, you can use the Amazon banner on JackieKashian.com to order your stuff from Amazon, and then the Dork Forest gets a tiny kickback on that. And I totally appreciate that if you order from Amazon, and we all do. Who's going to lie about such a thing? Anyway, comedy, donation. Oh, Bandcamp. I have premium episodes, live episodes. In the last year, the live episodes have, I've realized they cost me a couple of bucks, so they cost everybody who wants to listen to them a couple of bucks. So if you go to thedorkforest.bandcamp.com, you can get live episodes with the likes of Gail Carriger and Hollis Gillespie and Greg Proops and Dana Gould and a bunch of other people. Oh, and Karen Kilgariff and Guy Branum. But they're $2 a pop, and they're fun. On that Bandcamp, there's some other stuff, and there's a bunch of free episodes that I culled from all the Blog Talk years. And that's just a free album of I think it's 20 episodes from the first couple of years of the show that I tried to clean up a little bit. The audio isn't great, because no Patrick Brady. That's right. Anyway, other than that, allthingscomedy.com is the podcast umbrella of this program. And so if you're looking for more podcasts, go to allthingscomedy.com. By God, let's get into the show. Hey, it's Jackie Kashian in my living room. My living room, you guys, the Dork Forest with Jamie Flam. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me. You're
on the Long Shot podcast, which I have done more than once.
Yeah, which makes you a rarefied air.
I'm in rarefied airs.
Yes. What makes you actual rarefied air?
I'm actually... Welcome to my tiny house in the valley that I'm very cozy.
It's enchanting. It's a magical little haven.
We just planted tomatoes. We're not made of stone. So you got the Long Shot podcast, which is on iTunes. Is that on the Sideshow Network as well?
That
I
is
forgot
on
to ask.
All Things Comedy.
That's on All Things Comedy, which is what I'm on, you guys. Great way to get to see other podcasts is to go to allthingscomedy.com,
Yeah.
you guys, and maybe listen to the Long Shot podcast.
Sure.
And then you have your own podcast, The Gatekeeper.
Yeah, Gatekeeper. It just started.
Just Gatekeeper. Just started. How many episodes are you in?
I just recorded my 8th and 9th.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So, and you interview bookers.
Bookers, producers, kind of anyone that's in development or that say
Behind the camera?
Yes. Who says yes and no, and why do they say yes and no?
Okay, hence Gatekeeper.
Yes.
And you yourself book the Improv, and very nicely book me, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I think you're one of the funniest people on the planet.
Well, success that it's all working out. The Mutual Admiration Society, welcome. And so many, and I always say anybody can be on the Dork Forest, as long as you do not torment me online. Jesus H. Christ. Keep it tight, people. Anyway, you can be on. It's all just scheduling. And so I've wanted you to be on the show for a long time. And this is what I remember talking about you. You said, and then I guess we have not had I think it's going to work out.
I think I'm fingers are crossed.
I'm slightly panicking. I shouldn't be, but I'm slightly I think it's going to be fine. The Beatles.
Yeah.
You grew up here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I grew up in the valley where we are
Right
now.
here in the valley.
Yeah, Granada
Hour of
Hills.
the valley. Granada Hills nearby. And were you dipped? Were your parents in famous land? I mean, was it
No.
some sort of, did they have jobs like people?
Yeah, Flam's Key Service. It's been right up the
locksmiths.
street. It's on Van Nuys and Moore Park. It used to be at Ventura and Woodman.
And there's an ad for Flan's Key Service, you guys. Get out there, get your keys cut.
Keys cut. They also do commercial mailboxes.
Oh, very nice.
And
So if
all
I
your
were to
security
need a
needs.
P.O. box, like if I didn't want to be in the book anymore?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Okay.
But if you literally wanted the physical mailbox,
Oh, they sell physical mailboxes.
like apartment buildings,
Oh,
they have like 10,
the
20,
walls
whatever.
of mailboxes. Well, that'd be kind of funny to have one right here in Van Nuys at
All you mailbox dorks.
Casa. Yes,
This one's
Casa
for you.
Ashcraft Cation. But you grew up here, and so one of the first things you said when we started talking about it was that you had a Beatles themed bar mitzvah.
I did.
So you're not an old man. So there's no reason for you to have been into the Beatles as much as you were.
No, I mean, the story of how I got into the Beatles, I was in 5th grade, and we had a new student at the school, and his name was Danny Cooksey. Now, Danny played Sam on Different Strokes, which he was a little redhead kid,
Oh, wow.
possibly like the jumping the shark moment for Different Strokes.
Wait, is that when they adopted a white kid?
Yes,
There we go. Oh, the switcheroo.
the old switcheroo.
Very nice.
And so I went to this elementary school called Chatsworth Hills Academy, and it wasn't an academy; it was just a little private school.
Okay.
And we had
Did
students
they have
there.
academic dreams?
They did.
Excellent.
My mom helped me come up with the school slogan, which actually won me a trip. There was the Chatsworth Christmas parade.
Okay.
I got to be on a float because I came up with the winning slogan, which was Chatsworth Hills Academy. We're learning and fun are number one.
Oh, rhyming couplets.
Yes.
Well played.
Jackie Flam, well, shut up. But it was this little school in Chatsworth, and so there were students there that were child actors.
Okay.
Not a lot, but there were a handful of them. And so I grew up around some of these kids,
Right, because they have to go to school somewhere, and they live here.
and they all live in Chatsworth or around that.
Okay.
And so this kid Danny started, and he was at the time on our every kid's favorite sitcom, which was Different Strokes. And so, starstruck, and as were my friends, because to me he was the gateway to stardom. Become friends with this kid, I'm going to be on TV shows.
Right.
And so
He'll introduce you to showbiz.
exactly. So he would be wearing these Beatles cartoon T-shirts. And my first memory of really the Beatles was that this kid who I looked up to,
Who was super cool.
who was super cool, he was great ahead of me. He was already partying and doing all this stuff that my
Wait,
sheltered.
that means he was 11. So
was-
he was already partying.
Yeah,
Wow.
truly. Like he can't. I mean,
Like full on.
little Hollywood parties. Yeah,
Little Hollywood parties. little tiny bowl of latchkey kids. Wow, that's Crazyville.
It was, it was crazy. And I remember my parents being a little bit concerned about my obsession with him.
Right, I'm sure. They're like, we run a key store. If you could please keep your feet on the ground and keep aiming for the stars, says Dr. Demento. But so he had T-shirts lauding the Beatles.
Yeah, these Beatles. It would be like the cartoon versions of the Beatles.
Okay.
And I remember through that, I was like, I should get into the Beatles.
Right.
I
and your parents were like, well, we remember the Beatles. Let's tell you about the Beatles.
And so they had some records, and then I remember going to the Warehouse, which was like the tape store.
Okay.
And getting like the Beatles.
On cassette?
On cassette.
Okay.
The Beatles 62 to 66 was the first one.
Okay.
The famous red cover of the biggest hits.
It was a greatest hits one? Oh, right, because it would have been from 1962 to 1967.
Exactly. No, it's 66, and then they have
66.
There's 67 to 70, which was the later years.
Ah, there you go. When did they break up?
I think 70. Okay.
And so you listened to this cassette tape a lot.
A lot. Mm-hmm. And became obsessed, and then that's when I started going through the old records. And one of my best friends, Michael at the time, mutual obsession at the same time. We started listening to them, going through all the records, and then I decided to get a bass guitar. He got a regular guitar. We started playing songs.
Covering the Beatles? All right.
And then that leads to now junior high. So that was 5th and 6th grade.
Right.
It started like kind of emulating someone we looked up to, but then it became a real infatuation.
Your own thing, yeah.
And it was more than the Beatles. At a certain point, I was like obsessed with classic rock radio. Mm-hmm. I would listen to KLSX 97.1 FM.
And where fun and learning are number one. Yes, I don't know what their slogan was.
I think it was where hot jams and
sure when hot jams and peanut butter get together and and everybody has a nice sandwich. Why don't rock bands do that or rock
I don't know.
radio stations? So you started. So was that the KQ of the day or something like the local like classic rock?
Mm-hmm.
And was it classic rock even then? Because you had to be a child in the late 80s? Early 90s?
Early 90s.
Yeah. So you're listening to classic. Okay.
Yeah, it was like 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
It's so weird now listening to classic rock and hearing 80s and 90s songs.
Right. But they're still classic rock and they're still doing 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Nobody's really written any new music, have they? I'm uncertain. What's happening?
There's a lot of cool stuff happening.
Is there cool new music happening?
Yeah.
Is there anything new since rap? Since hip hop? I'm 100, by the way. And so the last real revolution, there was rap and then there was grunge.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened? Anything happen?
I think a few things.
Did rockabilly come before that? Was ska before that? What happened?
Ska is from 50s and 60s.
The 60s? Okay.
Like original ska, like from Jamaica.
Okay. Because I did an episode on Sky. I clearly did not memorize it with Brandy Posey. And she made a mixtape. Everyone, if you're going to send me a mixtape of songs, if you want me to listen to music, I too wish to listen to them. 8 songs. Murray Valeriano,
Mm-hmm.
you know Murray.
I do.
Gave me a USB stick with over 100 U2 songs on it. You know what that is? Too many U2 songs. Yeah. There's too many songs. There isn't a band in the world I want to listen to 100 of their songs. But, so what do you think?
What do I think?
About new music.
Oh, I think there's a ton of great stuff. And you just have to kind of find, there's so many ways to get it now that it's so oversaturated. But, you find your blog or your, Pitchfork is, it's very hipstery, but.
Pitchfork.com
mm-hmm.
or something? Is it
It's like a music review website, but they have tons of content. But every year, at the end of the year, they put out their top 100 albums, top 100 singles, and.
But is it all guitar rock or?
No, it's very eclectic. It's rock and hip hop and dance music and electronic and.
Right. Is there any new music? Like, is anyone taking a trumpet and playing it through the other end and then creating something that I didn't know about? Or are we still working with the same instruments and the same beats?
I would say electronic
is the most experimental.
But just using, technology to create music has opened new pathways and,
Okay.
as I've always said, new pathways.
New pathways. And is there an electronic, like in electronica, and this is not your dorkdom, but now we're weeding off into it. Lorraine Newman did an EDM episode, and she loves electronic dance music, which is what EDM stands for. Mm-hmm. I now know that. And but do you think that there's electronic covers of like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Jethro Tull or whatever else is?
A lot of electronic Tull.
A lot of electronic. That's the flute band, right? That's the band with the flute.
A lot of whimsical.
Right, that was progressive rock, right? That's prog rock, right?
Yeah.
Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
And yes, I remember these words. These are names of bands.
They are names of bands.
I think what you need to know about me about the 70s, I was listening to a lot of Harry Chapin and Billy Joel.
Sure.
Boo-hoo. A lot of sobbing briefly into a cracked mirror.
Yeah.
In the hopes to regroup. But what? So.
Well, actually, maybe a good way to bring it back is.
Yeah.
It's probably 10 or 12 or 15 years old now, maybe 10 years. But the classic mashup of Jay-Z's Black Album,
okay,
and the Beatles' White Album by Danger Mouse. He basically mashed these two records together and called it the Grey Album.
Okay.
So that would be a perfect example.
That is a perfect example of. Wait, so is Danger Mouse a hip hop singer?
He's a producer.
As a producer, yeah. and does he talk into the mic at all? Does he use
I'm sure
his
there's
voice?
examples of him doing that. I'm not super savvy with it, but.
So what is the Grey Album? Is the Grey Album, does it sound more Beatles or does it sound more?
Basically taking.
Yesterday? Is it taking like
I don't think Yesterday's on it.
Okay, because what was on the White Album? What songs that I might know? Jackie Kashian, who know nothing. I own one album, one Beatles album.
Rocky Raccoon, Happiness is a Warm Gun.
Sure. And then
Martha, My Dear.
Okay.
Revolution.
Okay.
The
both versions, no doubt.
Both versions.
Sure.
Revolution number 9 is the avant-garde 13-minute or whatever it is.
Right.
If you play it backwards, it says, "Turn me on, dead man."
Does it?
Yeah. Turn me on, dead man.
How do you play something backwards?
You have to have a turntable and you just.
Oh, and then you actually physically.
Which again gets us back to hip hop. Who.
Right.
There's the art of scratching and.
The art of. Sure. I'm familiar. That's not anything like what it sounds like, but I'm available to drop your beats for you guys out there. But what? So you're playing when you're 10 and 11 years old. You start playing the Beatles, and then what is a Beatles bar mitzvah?
So the Beatles bar mitzvah was. It's more sort of the reception. I mean, the bar mitzvah itself.
The bar mitzvah is all in Hebrew.
Yeah, that's just chanting Hebrew.
Right, a lot of memorization.
Yeah.
Talk to me briefly about this memorization. Did you have to memorize or could you read it?
You didn't have to memorize, but you had to memorize the chant.
You had to memorize
the
pronunciation
out of the Torah.
Okay.
But you're chanting it, so you have to remember like where you go, like
where the breath marks are.
The breath marks.
And
the BM.
Exactly. And wait, that's a different. So sort of like any sort of birthday party. But this is your 13th birthday party.
Yeah. So then, and especially I think in the San Fernando Valley, a hotbed for us Jews.
A hotbed of Judaism, the Valley.
But I think it's as much, and I don't think my parents are as guilty of this. I mean, in this day and age, I think everyone's trying to outdo each other. Yeah,
there seems to be that. I have some very impressive Armenian neighbors who are constantly buying bouncy houses for their kids. Yeah. And I'm like, just calm down, give them a piece of string, they'll be happy. But so there was some outdoing, and so your family got a little sucked into it. And
just thematically, you want to put on a great party and impress your relatives and your friends and
make sure everybody has a good time and make sure nobody says, they didn't do it right or they were cheap or they didn't rise to the occasion or whatever. So they hired is that where the Beatles reunion happened? Was it at your bar mitzvah?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, that was that was the huge reveal. How crazy would that be? That would be the biggest thing is that if they could somehow talk
This is kind of like one of my parents' close friends at their daughter's wedding. What's that famous guy's name?
Could be anyone.
I know.
We live here.
He's one of the
Gibson.
judges on the show.
Simon.
The Voice.
Okay. Nope.
And then he's in a band that's very big.
Okay. One Direction.
It's not
I'm just
One
going to start
Direction.
naming random things.
They're big enough where you should know this guy, and I absolutely should know who.
The Dave Matthews Band.
No.
Okay. This is a fun game.
The song Moves Like Jagger.
Okay.
Who sings that?
I don't know, but someone right now is yelling at their iPod.
Very much.
So there you go. That guy.
That guy and his band surprised everyone and played their wedding.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was for a bigger project, but
Right. than someone's bar mitzvah. Yeah.
it was a wedding. But anyway.
Yeah.
So the reception was at the Ventura Club, which is on Ventura. It's now a Baja Fresh or Chipotle or something.
Sure.
But then it was a reception hall. Very nice.
Sure. There are a million of them here in the Valley, quite honestly. You can hire any sort of a building and they'll hook you up.
Paquito Mas. It's a Paquito
And there's a
Mas.
Paquito, and there's a Paquito.
That's what it is. Josh Levine? Adam Levine.
Adam Levine. All right.
That's the guy that sings in the band.
Oh, good.
Great.
Now people know. Note to self, you guys. So, but all right, well, that's good. And then they showed up, but on yours, so were there paper plates that had pictures of the Beatles on it? What is a Beatles themed?
So the centerpieces had little 45 records.
Oh,
And, we printed out little centers.
stickers to go to them.
So
yeah.
people were sitting at the She Loves You table and maybe the Abbey Road table and
Okay. Oh, like that.
yeah.
So it was like that. Okay. And then they played a lot of Beatles probably for the
There
dancing.
was some Beatles, and I recently uncovered the video from the event.
Okay.
And so there were some Beatles songs. There's a music booth. It's kind of cool thing they got. They got this booth so that you could go in, pick a song, and you and your friends would do basically karaoke.
Oh, I love that idea.
And you get a cassette at the end.
Oh my God. Where's that machine?
I think it's way outdated.
I know, because nobody has a cassette player anymore. But when you know what? I've actually seen comics who put out their albums on cassettes because everybody's doing it on vinyl because they're super cool. I went and saw Elvis Costello last night.
You mentioned
and a young band, two sisters, kind of country, kind of rockabilly, kind of Janis Joplin-y, they're called Larkin Poe.
Okay.
And they're on Conan, I guess.
Oh, cool.
Tonight. Not tonight, because this will come out in 2 weeks. But they had their album as a CD or as vinyl. And I bought the CD. We have some albums sitting around this house. We don't have a turntable. I gave away my Close and Play quite some time ago. And remember the Close? I don't know if you ever remembered the Close and Play.
No.
It was a record player for kids.
Oh, and it opens.
When it opens, it would stop automatically. So that you could not break the album. It was for kids. It would only play the album when the top was all the way down. But I don't know if it would fit a full album. I think it just fit 45s.
Got it.
Because it was for kids. And
Kids are stupid and they can't handle a big record.
they can't handle the truth. And so 62 to, what's your favorite Beatles song? Who's your favorite Beatle?
Those are great questions.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Beatle? You know there's a war. I understand Yoko might have broken up the team or something.
I was always a John guy.
You were a John guy.
I was a John, but then George kind of became the cool one to like.
Okay.
And then recently, in the
George
last year-
Harrison?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of the
Why?
underdog.
Yeah, that is an underdog.
I think he's an underrated guitarist.
Okay.
Although
He had a couple of albums, right? Didn't he have an
Yeah,
acclaimed solo album?
a few.
Okay, more than one.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, great for him.
Yeah.
And he was a traveling Wilbury. Do you remember them?
Oh, I do remember them briefly.
It was him, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne, and I think Ringo played on it,
Jesus.
and Roy Orbison.
What?
Powerhouse.
That's a crazy mashup of.
And that all came out right at the time that I was obsessed, so like the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay. Wow. So, but why did you like John Lennon? Did you like him because he was the cool guy, or?
I don't know. I always liked him the most. There's definitely a distinction, especially in the later years, between a John song and a Paul song. And Paul maybe was on the more poppy side. John was a little more introspective.
What's a John song that's introspective?
You think of Imagine.
Okay, but that's solo, isn't it? What is there?
Julia. which is on the White Album.
That's a Beatles one, Julia? I don't even know that song offhand.
You would know it if you heard it.
I bet I would. But, and what did Paul write?
I mean, a million other songs. I mean, it's overwhelming when you think about their catalog.
But in the Beatles, was there a poppy one that Paul wrote?
The early stuff, and it's, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, those specifics, I was much more entrenched in the. Right. Well, and
I know that Paul went on to do Wings, and then a solo career that has spanned these many years. And I know that. Here's what I know about John Lennon. I watch all of the Dick Cavett that I can, and there is a Dick Cavett interview with John Lennon where they're just sitting there, no doubt drinking something alcoholic and chain smoking, and John is talking about. I think it was in 72 or 73. It was after they broke up, and Dick Cavett asks him about Yoko and the stuff about her breaking up the band, and. I'm paraphrasing, but if I remember correctly, John said, people always say that, but look at the good work that Paul has done. If that's true, you should thank Yoko. If you really think that, which that's not what happened, but you should be psyched because he's gotten to expand his creativity into these amazing places that it would not have been possible if we had stayed in the Beatles. So.
And that's a good point. I mean, the craziest thing about the Beatles is that, they were together for years before, and to put in those 10,000 hours of you hear about playing in clubs and the Cavern Club, and then in Hamburg, Germany, they played 5 shows a night for 3 years or whatever it was.
Wow.
So they had already been working together, but they came to America in '64,
right?
And they were broken up by '70. It was like the 6 years of the most crazy evolution. And of course, in their early and mid 20s at this point, they were all under 30, I think, when they broke up. And so you think about that era of their life, and and creatively, artistically, just the sheer volume that they put out in that time. Of course, they were going to get to the point where their ideas and they're going to start butting heads. So I think Yoko is an easy scapegoat.
Right.
This is the podcast where Jamie comes out in defense of Yoko Ono.
Exactly. I don't want to listen to Yoko Ono sing anything personally, just because it's not for me. I'm sure she's it's amazing to those who enjoy her work, but I'm not. It's not. It's not catchy. I can't sing along. It's hard for me. So, but I do remember liking both John Lennon and Paul McCartney separately and not having any idea what George or Ringo was doing. And I think my brother explained it to me that they were living on residuals. It was royalties, and they were buying land. Who knows what they were doing?
George had a flourishing career of his own. Put out tons of
flowers.
Albums. Yeah,
no.
And
I wanted him to have a flower shop for some reason. George, is Ringo still alive?
Still alive. He put out a bunch of solo albums.
He's a drummer, though, right? So
he's a drummer.
How do you? I suppose Phil Collins, isn't he a drummer?
He is a drummer as well.
He had some solo albums. You just hire people to play around you, I guess. Is that what you do?
Yeah.
All right.
But Ringo sang songs. He usually had 1 to 2 songs on the White Album. I think he had 2 or 3 songs that were his own. And the White Album, especially the Beatles at that point, were so in their own worlds. Like, it really is. Every song is so disparate, and you can tell who wrote it and who's on it.
Oh wow!
And that's part of the magic too. Is at that point you'd think that they were already going to be broken up, but it's what makes Abbey Road, which was the last album they recorded, all the more magical, because it's like let's give it one more shot, guys.
Okay.
And to me, that's, arguably one of the best albums, especially side 2 of Abbey Road.
Okay.
Where there's a medley, and it's just like all these elements that.
Where they were really working together again. They were like, we're going to work together, we're going to do it, like sort of their earlier stuff. And then did they, and the White Album, did it feel like sort of like everybody was like, fine, we'll just break up the tracks, do whatever you want kind of thing?
Yeah, some tracks, then every Beatles track has a story behind it, and some tracks were.
I suppose because people are obsessed with the Beatles, they're like, how did this one song happen?
Yeah, if you go on Wikipedia now,
yeah,
every song has
some sort of crazy backstory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to. I have a double CD, the red cover. It's the number one. It's all their number one hits, and I'm trying to. I can't even think of. I mean, I know that I know the Beatles. I mean, there's no way. There's no. It'd be like not knowing. Something like me not knowing who the quarterback for the Packers is. I don't know.
You know.
I do, just through osmosis. Like I have access to a lot of things Jesus said because of church.
Sure.
But there's no way that I don't. Let me be the first to compare the Beatles to Jesus. Oh wait.
Yeah.
Anyway. I'm here all week, you guys. That's funny. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I know that I know the songs, but is there, what's a good story about one of those songs?
A good story. I mean,
or like a good song what's one of your favorite songs of theirs that has a good story attached to it? I can't even think of a song, which is ridiculous.
it's a great question.
It's a great question. This is what I do. I sit here, I think of questions. That's what I like. But Abbey Road, what songs are on Abbey Road?
Sun King. I Want You. That you would, I mean, for there's something in the way she moves.
Oh, yeah.
Maxwell Silverhammer.
Oh, right. What's the story of Maxwell Silverhammer?
I have
Are they
no
just
idea.
stoned out of their damn minds?
I think that might be the story for a lot of them.
Yeah, why not? If the pot was free, and it often is. I just talked to Doug Benson. Someone is constantly handing that guy a joint. And
You never give me your money.
it's what's that? Is that a song?
It's a song.
Oh, okay.
It's the most, the song Come Together.
Okay.
Come Together. Another song that people know that you know Come Together.
Yeah, do you have a story about it?
That story thing.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a story about Come Together. I have stories about me listening to them more so than I have about
Let's
them.
hear that. I want to hear that then. What's your favorite story of you listening to the Beatles?
It's a Saturday afternoon, 3
Okay,
o'clock.
there we go.
I'm tired. I'm beat. No energy. Then I
Right.
throw on Helter Skelter, and all of a sudden,
Yep.
this little 14-year-old wants to go
Change the
murder
world.
people a la
Oh, there you go. Because Helter Skelter was about murder?
It was about Charles Manson.
Okay.
Based on the book about the Manson killers.
Okay. So do you just get stoned and listen to a lot of Beatles? Is that what's happening?
As a kid, no. I didn't
Okay.
start smoking pot until after my obsession.
Okay.
But there's Beatle Fest. I can talk about Beatle Fest.
Sure.
Beatle Fest. I don't know if it still happens, but it was a Beatle festival. Mm-hmm. It took place at the Westin Bonaventure Hotel, downtown LA.
Okay.
And I would go every year, and sea of booths of people selling merch.
Yeah.
I would get hundreds of posters every year, and selling Beatle dolls, old records, anything you can imagine.
Yeah.
They would have like special drop-in guests, like now in this conference room, Alf Bicknell, who was their chauffeur from 62 to 65, sharing stories about.
Okay.
And then they had the Battle of the Bands. And in 1990, I believe, or 91, I got my buddies together and we submitted our band, and we got in.
Oh, wow.
And so the bands, they were all in like their 20s, 30s, all old people.
Right.
Or not old now, but.
Right. But they were all established musicians.
Yes.
And these were cover bands.
Yeah, and so for Beatle Fest Battle of the Bands, you go up and you do Beatles songs.
Right.
And so we rehearsed, got our songs down, and then we got up there, and just by nature of us not looking like everyone else,
Yeah.
the interest of the stage and these 14-year-old kids, I had already had my growth spurt, so I was like, at one point in my life, I was actually the tallest.
Fair enough.
But at the time, two of the guys in the band, Gabe and Mike, were tiny.
Okay.
They looked like they were like 9 years old. And Gabe, the singer and
Yep.
lead guitar player, he had this amazing voice. And so we do Oh Darling, which is also on Abbey Road.
Okay.
And it's Paul singing, and it's like he belts it out. And Gabe just, his little lungs just went out there, and he kicked ass and
Yeah.
just threw people through a loop. They were going crazy.
Yeah.
It might have been the best moment of my life.
And did you guys win, or did you come in place, or?
There's probably 20 bands, and then there was a runoff between 3 of us. And we were one of the top 3.
Wow.
And then it came down to 2. We were top 2. But then we ultimately lost to Glass Onion.
Glass Onion was the name of the cover band.
A song from White Album.
And does Gabe still sing?
Gabe has an amazing career.
Yeah?
As a musician. He's in a band called the Punch Brothers now.
Oh, there you go.
They're a bluegrass band. He was always a bluegrass, he grew up in a bluegrass band with his family.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
And Michael, who's a guitar player and one of my best friends, he still plays in bands. And
okay, so those guys kept with the music and kept doing it. Mm-hmm. And what about the other? Was there a fourth? There
was a fourth.
Who was the fourth?
His name was Anthony.
And he went on to become a banker or something
I don't know.
else.
Well, his dad.
Yeah.
His dad is named Don Was.
Okay.
Don Was.
From Was Not Was?
Yes.
Weird. And why do I know that coming out of? You went.
Do you remember their big song?
No.
Walk the Dinosaur?
Sure. I know the name of that song. So you were in junior high with Don Was's son, and then you were in a band with his son.
He was Gabe's cousin, I believe.
Okay.
And so Don Was, at the time, I don't know if he still does, lived in this amazing house up in Coldwater Canyon.
Okay.
And so when we're forming the band, he's like, hey, we should get my cousin in it. And his dad's a famous producer and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So we'd go up into this kind of mansion-y place up in Coldwater.
That's where the mansions are being kept in Los Angeles. Right? Crazyville.
And so I'll never forget one of the rehearsals we went to. Don walked in. We had his little studio area.
Right.
And he was like, sorry it took so long. I was on the phone with Mick Jagger.
Oh, my God.
And he had gold records everywhere. He produced major albums.
Okay, so he was in that band, the very famous band Was Not Was, but he was also a producer. I think he became more famous as a producer, didn't he?
Oh, much more.
Yeah, Was Not Was great, and there was cult sort of following of it, some small success or bigger than.
I would actually like to know what was Was Not Was.
It's I don't know. All I remember is I'm calling you from jail. And I think the only Was Not Was song I ever knew was from the movie Pump Up the Volume, which is with Christian Slater, maybe. And it was my introduction to Leonard Cohen, my introduction to Was Not Was, and my introduction to guys jerking off and making that noise. So a lot of things were learned. And then I bought the soundtrack to that album. I mean, that's the way I buy music, by the way. I'll listen to
that pen is gone.
I dropped that pen. That'll happen. Ooh, extra pen coming. Yeah, I buy soundtracks more than anything else. I'm like, oh, I wonder who those bands are.
That's a great way to find music.
Yeah, and then I might buy the album from one of the songs that's on that. And so so that's kind of fascinating that you got to meet that guy.
Yeah, I forget about that. But and he played bass too, so he would teach me some stuff.
Oh, wow.
And of course, as soon as I got to 10th grade, I was done playing bass for a while, but
what brought you away from it? What lured you into the hand like a baby bird being saved?
The need to be liked, the need for popularity, the need to fit in and meet girls, and
stop practicing the bass.
I really gave up. I mean, I have no regrets.
No regrets. You can't regret.
I really did, move away from music, and I was obsessed with musical theater, and I would perform and all those things that I at that point decided were dorky or.
Oh, right. You rejected them as kind of dorky.
Yeah, and I became obsessed with hip hop, which was a genuine obsession, but it was also me trying at that point in my life too.
I think that leads us to something. You're like, well, cool people I know like that, so I'm going to look into it. And then there's a reason they like it, because it's kind of cool, I mean, a friend of mine in 1989 loved Boogie Down Productions, and so that's how I got into hip hop. But she also liked XTC, which I've only recently realized stands for ecstasy.
Oh.
I may not do a lot of drugs. Anyway, and never have. Luckily, never got into drugs. But I think I never cared for XTC. They were not for me. But I liked Black Flag. I liked some of the punk stuff, which, by the way, my punk knowledge comes entirely from the movie Repo Man, with Emilio Estevez.
Yes.
There you go.
All the hits are coming out today.
All the hits, everything the thing is every time there's an episode about music, it is a spiral of me just grasping at straws of what I might know about music.
Someone that doesn't know music doesn't just drop Boogie Down Productions.
Well, as I think it's been established previously on the Dork Forest, I own one album of everything. So, and then I don't know anything else about,
That's more than most.
Some, well, I think though, there is a young man, one of these young Turks of comedy. He wants to come on and talk about music, and I am, of course, terrified at just the idea of it because I don't know what. It's hard to lead. So what happened with the Beatles? Any other good Beatles stuff you want to tell?
Sure.
Or do you want to move on to other things?
No, I mean I think I have a couple other stories I've definitely told on Long Shot, but I mean one of the most classic stories of my life was. When I was, I think, 14, so right around this time, I get home after school one day, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and on the other end of the line is a fella claiming that they're Ringo Starr.
What?
And it's like, hello, is it Jamie? I'm not going to even try to do the accent.
Right. Probably
hello.
Wait a minute.
Is this Jamie?
Wow, that's nothing. There's a reason I don't get work.
How'd you have all my albums? That's the best I can do.
Okay.
But, and of course, I'm like, who is this?
Yeah.
And, start listing through my friends. Is this Mike? Mike, come on. No, this is Ringo Starr. And, why would he be calling me? And then finally, after a minute of this, of him just being like, thank you for listening to all my albums. And again, I hear my dad pick up another phone. It's like,
right.
It's like, James, this is Ringo. Don't fuck this up.
Right.
In my memory, he said, don't fuck this up. I don't think it would actually said that.
Right.
But, and the story was Ringo was shooting a movie in the valley somewhere.
Sure.
And him and a producer, they were doing a scene where someone had to, I think, break into a safe.
Oh, so there were key needs.
They went to get some consulting on how to shoot the scene to make it look like they're breaking into the safe or whatever.
Yeah.
And God bless my dad. It's one of the coolest things ever is that he had the balls.
Right. And in the moment kind of thought, you know who loves the Beatles? My son. Ringo Starr, I will help you. And yet you must call my son and talk to him.
Yeah.
So you got to talk to him for a couple of minutes or a minute or?
Well, as soon as my dad got off and it was like, this is Ringo, I started screaming like I was at the Ed Sullivan show in 1964.
Right.
I was like screaming like a 16-year-old girl watching the Beatles.
Right.
And just running around the house. And I think everything else after that I forgot.
Right. But that is amazing. I mean, it's one of those things where you definitely, have you met any other Beatles?
And well, yeah, that's in the last year. Paul McCartney came to the Improv 3 times.
What? How come he, who was there the night I was there?
Who?
Alex Trebek.
I remember that.
So
you got a picture with him together.
I did get a picture with him. I thought, I don't usually ask for pictures with people, but when's the next time I'm going to get to meet, Alex Trebek is 107 years old.
Trebek to me is like, he's up there as far as.
He's a cool dude. And the fact that he came was and he was very sweet. It was sort of, what's his name? Penny Marshall's brother, Gary. That's what I like to think of him as. I like to think of him as Penny Marshall's brother. Gary Marshall once said to me, he said, "You're very talented." And I wish I had that on tape, a pillow, and I wish he was standing next to me and had a photograph with me. So when I met Alex Trebek, I thought, they said, you don't get to meet these guys that often, so get a picture. Did you get a picture with Paul McCartney?
I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
So he came in, the first time he came in, I was out of the town. I was up in Big Bear for a week.
And did you cry?
And I never go out of town.
Mm-hmm. You never are not working.
I'm always there.
Right.
And it was just this random night. And I remember got on Instagram, I'm scrolling through and then see this picture of Paul at the Improv. I'm like, oh my God, not tonight. And
it was tonight.
So I missed him the first time.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks later, it was another night. And I didn't hear about it till the next day.
You missed him again?
I went home early and I lived 3 blocks from the Improv.
Right.
And so that next day everyone on the staff, I was like, if fucking Paul McCartney ever comes back, and I'm not one to raise my voice.
Right.
But I was like,
please text me,
yes.
Call me, send him a flare for the love of the baby Jesus.
Please.
Get Jamie Flam back to the Improv to see in person
right.
Paul McCartney.
And so 3rd time's the charm.
Yeah. came to pass?
I went home early this night, and then
Of course.
my phone started blowing up.
Yeah. Everyone's like, come on back. He's here.
And so I raced back. Sure enough, he was there, and had a moment. I snuck into a picture with him, but had a moment where I went up to him. He was sitting in the back, and so he was on tour this last year, and he was, I think, rehearsing for the tour somewhere over here in the Valley.
Okay.
And just liked the improv, felt safe there, and
Thought he'd go see some comedy.
yeah, and we'd just get this phone call. I guess each time he would call up and say, "Hey, this is Paul McCartney," or maybe it was one of his handlers.
Hopefully he has someone to make that call for him. He doesn't have to be like the president calling and ordering flowers and the American president. Anyway, so
he just rolled up, and it was just him and one other guy. But I went up to him in the back and just introduced myself, and told him I'm the booker, and just, it's a pleasure and an honor to have him here.
right, because it's always so embarrassing to try to introduce yourself to someone famous. You kind of want to justify why you think it's okay that you're like, well, this is my place of work. This is what I do.
Yeah.
So I'm not just some dude coming up to you and interrupting.
You kind of that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing, but I love that you feel that
I wasn't going to, and then one of our sound guy that night was just like, Jamie, this is your only chance.
This is your only chance. You really, that's why I thought, and Alex Trebek is no Paul McCartney. He's no John Kennedy, but it was.
But Alex Trebek is arguably the Beatle of television
Game shows. Sure. If I could have met Richard Dawson, it would have been very
I
exciting.
think him, Dawson, and Pat Sajak.
Though Richard Dawson always felt like he was the kind of like an elbow squeezery kind of guy, where he would have been like a little petty.
Oh, he's very petty.
Yeah, I was like, ugh, I don't know that I would have wanted to meet Richard Dawson quite so much.
He's like the Pete Best of the.
Is Pete Best the non-Beatle, the extra Beatle?
Well, there's two. There's Pete Best and Stu Sutcliffe.
Okay.
Pete Best, I think, was actually fired.
Okay.
He was the drummer, and that they felt just wasn't a fit. And
Right.
their manager was like, "We need to go in a different direction."
Right.
Don't quote me on that story. I've proven that I know a lot about the Beatles, but not stories.
Right, not enough stories. And I just remembered who I had on who talked about the Beatles one time, and I think it was Pat Francis, who is Jimmy Pardo's, a really good friend of Jimmy Pardo's, comic and very funny guy. But he collects autographs, and he had some sort of crazy Pete Best story that I didn't know enough about to really. You guys, what I'm saying is that if you want more, go to your local library or Google the words The Dork Forest and the Beatles, and you'll get many different tales of what can happen. I'm with at Jamie Flam, by the way. It's JAMIE FLAN. M like man.
I was going to tell you earlier.
That is weird that I went with an N like Nancy. It's M like man or
You're not the
monster.
first. Eddie Pepitone, who I did podcasts for 4 years.
Right, years in a row.
And always
Thought it was Flan.
Yeah.
I always thought it was Flan. And then I thought, is it pronounced Flan? But it isn't, because it's Flam.
It's Flam.
With an M.
With an M.
So
Yep.
It's at Jamie Flam. And Gatekeeper is the cool new pod that people keep telling me is cool and new.
Oh, cool.
And Longshot Pod is old. You guys have been doing that forever. But it is super fun because it's with
Yeah, you have to come back.
Amber Tozer and
Amber Kenny.
Kenny. What?
Yeah, different Amber.
Son of a
Getting
damn.
your Ambers mixed up.
You know that I had lunch yesterday with Amber Tozer, and I called her Amber Preston.
There's another great Amber.
There's some Ambers out there, you guys. People have been named after the beautiful jewelry that is.
Amber is a
It's a
wood
rock.
resin.
I thought it was. Is it wood resin?
Don't quote me. Nothing I've said is
We
true.
have weeded. It's just, this is a pack of lies. This Dork Forest is sponsored by the devil. We don't have all the information, you guys. Feel free to Google everything. And then, someone will email me and tell me what amber is offhand. All I know is that my grandmother, old Armenian ladies have a lot of amber jewelry that they pass on to their kids, and it's always too big to wear. So I have a lot of large amber pieces that I've tried to do various things with. All I've done is ended up destroying the necklace my grandmother gave me. So,
Well, if worst case scenario, you have something to pawn. Should things.
right. There does seem to
south.
be a lot of amber in pawn shops. Have you noticed that?
Apparently, it
I
seemed
don't
like
know if you spend a lot of time in pawn
I
shops.
don't.
I
just pictured a lot of Amber in there.
It's I'm doing a new podcast with Lori Kilmartin.
I am.
And nobody has more more snark to say about the Armenian people, my people, than Lori Kilmartin. And it is a joy to behold. Though the other night she made some crack about how she likes Armenians sometimes, but she just doesn't like chandeliers. Mm-hmm. So it's very hard to hang out with them. And
always toting around a chandelier.
Always toting around along. And so I think I should reference more amber. Maybe she could make a loose amber reference, because there is a lot of amber in the Armenian community. So
you have to build up those stereotypes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can create them.
Out of nothing, out of whole cloth. You're like, I don't know if you remember an old Dana Gould joke about the Belgians. Mm. Anyway, it's his dad hated people, but it was always somebody weird that nobody hated. Mm. And so he would always make some crack about the Belgians. Anyway, other Dana Gould jokes that I also enjoy a great deal.
You're reading from your Gould notebook.
My Gould notebook. I got a notebook about the great jokes of Dana Gould. What else? You got another...
Beatles?
Yeah. You got anything?
Beatles. I told the Ringo Starr story. We got the Paul McCartney dropping in to the club. And don't have a good George story.
Who's left? John. John died. Where were you when John died? Were you born?
I was 4 years old.
You were 4 years old. You were a baby. You were a child. So you didn't do it.
I didn't do it. Or if I did, I was...
You were precocious as all hell, man. What were you doing in New York?
I don't know.
Just wandering around. I think it was the Lower West Side, wasn't it? I forget where he lived.
It was one of the West Sides. Lower or upper.
It might have been upper.
The Dakotas. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
Dropping knowledge.
That's you got some info. It's I don't know. I also have a double CD set of the best of Wings. Mm-hmm. History and Hits is what it's called. One CD is the hits, and that's all, I think, the number one songs that Wings did. And there's like 30 of them. There's so many. Nobody's more prolific, I don't think, than Paul McCartney. And then the history ones are sort of these B-sides that I've also heard many of them. I mean, it's weird how many songs he's written.
All of them. I mean, it really is insane how much they put out and how important they are. It's weird now. I think it's a kind of a cool thing for people to say that you're a Beatle hater, or that you're just, it's always the Beatles versus the Rolling Stones, and I've never understood that argument.
Yeah, I think because they were both 25, and everybody wanted to sleep with all of them, and they're like, I like a guy with longer hair. Oh no, they have long hair. They just want to get laid. So I don't understand either. I mean, though the Rolling Stone, it was their music was harder rock, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, it was just more. I mean, it was harder rock, but they're both very different. But I mean, they're still experimental. They're still, at the same time, and that's what's so cool about the Beatles and the Stones, and I think a lot of music that generation is really just reflecting, because it was so much happening in the world at that point, and in the U.S., that shift with the war happening, and just the psychedelic and the love movement, and
right, all the new drugs, and then there was there was a new war, and there was a new protest thing, and a lot of very well-to-do people raising children who had a lot of free time. As my father always said about wealthy nations. That's why there's revolution. That's why in
Revolution, by the way, the name of my Beatles cover band.
Oh, was that the name of your Beatles cover band when you were 14? Interesting. And how did you dress for this event? Do you guys wear like hippie clothes, or
it was?
Did you try to go late Beatles or early Beatles?
We went early Beatles.
Oh, so white shirts blazers. And the skinny tie.
We didn't do the tie for some reason.
Right. Well, you got to find ties. Yeah. And when you're 14 and you were just putting together essentially what are costumes, you do what you can.
It was more of a mop toppy. It's funny. I found the submission that I sent in to Beatlefest for our band, and then on the back, and I was very brash. I should have brought that with me. I would have read it on the air, but it was like, my name is Jamie Flam. I'm a male, and it's funny. All the letters I wrote back then always, and I would write letters, and it's funny. I actually have drafts of letters I wrote to the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers fan club.
Okay.
I would write to KLSX. So I talked about every year. On New Year's, they would play the top 500 classic rock songs of all time. And I don't know why I even had the wherewithal to do this, but I would call the station and ask them to mail me the list. And so every year they would mail me this, packet of 25 pages, just listing the top 500 songs they played.
Yeah.
Then I would break out highlighters. Mm-hmm. This is really weird. And just
no, this is minute 50. This is when the dorkdom actually happens.
Right.
Go.
I would highlight. So the Beatles would be the pink highlighter, and the Rolling Stones would be the yellow. Led Zeppelin would be green, and start going down and then tallying. Like, all right, the Beatles had 45 songs in the top 500, and the Rolling Stones, and then just seeing who had the most songs, in the top 100. It was pretty weird.
Right. It was you cared. You wanted the Beatles to win. Mm-hmm. Sure, why not? And then did you take that list and listen to any other new music because of it or no? Yeah.
It opened me up to pop stuff and Styx and the Emerson, Lake and Palmers and Yes, and
which are all 10 years before you were at any interest in listening to anything. That's interesting.
Yeah, such good. I mean, and Yardbirds and obviously Pink Floyd was always had a lot of stuff in there.
Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin. I did a Pink Floyd episode recently. And it was interesting. I don't know anything about the Pink Floyd. I listened to a little bit afterwards, and it was. I've now listened to some ska. I've listened to some Pink Floyd, and I have listened. It's
a pretty wide spectrum.
Sure. It turns out I'll listen to anything. It'll be fine.
Pink Floyd, great.
Yeah,
they're really good.
Sure.
You heard it here first, folks.
You heard it here. Yeah, take a stand. Take a stand that Pink Floyd was pretty good. I think somebody wanted me to listen to a lot of Led Zeppelin at some point.
They're great.
And, they're all right. I mean, I don't think I was ever high enough to really get into that sort of acid prog rock kind of stuff where it was all loosey-goosey. And I'm like, cause I like a story. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys remember The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, but, it was Gordon Lightfoot.
Oh, got it.
Gordon Lightfoot wrote one song, and it was best summed up with The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which is a story about a boat that sinks in either Lake Michigan or Lake Superior. I can't remember. It was probably Michigan. That's where I grew up, right against Lake Michigan.
Nice.
And but it had a nice story, and that's one of the reasons I liked hip hop, because I liked country music, because it had a nice story. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the Beatles would lose me when it got all existential or just trippy, I was like, oh, I don't see what you're doing, but I see what you're doing. I don't think I wanted there to be an arc. I wanted there to be a tale.
What about A Day in the Life? That might be the best Beatles song, by the way.
Oh yeah?
That song?
No, I'll look that one up.
I heard the news today, oh boy. That's one of their best ones.
I do know that song.
You definitely know that one.
Yeah, I know that song, A Day in the Life. Yeah,
I'm trying to think of other good stories. I mean, Rocky Raccoon on the album.
I used to love Rocky Raccoon.
That's just straight up.
That's straight up. Here's a story about a family.
There's another song on the album called Bungalow Bill.
Yeah, I like that song too.
Fun little story. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and that is the other thing too. Is I do get sucked into sort of I like a poppy beat, which is why I guess I always tended to lean more toward Paul McCartney. Emotionally, Lennon was more interesting just because he was broodier. Mm-hmm. He was more brooding and less. He was more interesting seeming than Paul McCartney. But remember Pipes of Peace?
I do.
Yeah.
That's like a deep cut.
That is Pipes of Peace. I only remember it because early years of MTV. In my college co-op, I lived in a co-op that we had MTV, and I remember I would just stop everything when I don't remember that being like popular. It was a music video. It was it was a pretty good hit, and then it was also a music video, and the music video was set during World War I.
Oh, I do know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you've seen it, where the Germans and the English exchange letters on that Christmas night, and then little fun history fact is they made that illegal in the army afterwards. They were like, even though it's a ceasefire, please do not humanize your enemies because you're going to have to kill them tomorrow. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
I had that album and I listened to it a lot, but there's a song that he does with Michael Jackson.
Ebony and Ivory?
No, it's called The Man. I mean, the famous song is Ebony Ivory is with Stevie Wonder.
Oh, that's right.
And
all I remember is the drama that it wasn't recorded in the same country. They recorded it in different
interesting. I didn't know that.
studios. And I think Stevie Wonder, was it Stevie Wonder?
Mm-hmm.
Stevie Wonder was in like the Bahamas or something, and the Caribbean somewhere on vacation, and then he went into the studio and recorded his part, and Paul McCartney recorded it in London. And there was some sort of drama about how that's not going to heal racism if they can't even be in the same room together. And you're like,
I don't think it was because they didn't want to.
Yeah, it was completely absurd. Anyway, but you were going to...
Well, the other song was Say, Say, Say.
Okay.
That was like a big Michael Jackson, Paul McCartney. But there's a song called The Man, and I'm pretty sure it's about Jesus.
Okay. It's not about the man? You know how the man's keeping you down?
Who plays the game of life so well. Ooh, there's such a man.
Oh my God, I don't know that song.
I don't think anyone does. I think it's so catchy.
Yeah.
But I think it was maybe just a little too religious. I mean, I don't say Jesus, and maybe it's not.
Okay.
But I'm just assuming it is. But
because it's certainly not talking about, I don't know, some sort of financial, like the man. It isn't the white man.
No.
Okay.
I think they're talking about a magical man.
Okay. Oh, a magical man.
He plays the
And
game
that
of
is
life
Jesus.
so well.
I think we know that is Jesus. He is very magical. But I will look up the man, Paul McCartney.
Listen to it. I think you're going to like it.
Okay.
Very catchy.
Neat.
Yeah. And then Beatles. I mean, another cool thing, and part of the thrill of becoming a Beatles fan was, I got that 62 to 66 album, and you start to get into them, and like, oh, these are really poppy and fun. And then when I got the 67 to 70, you see this dramatic change, and you start to hear about like the stories. And I think that's why anyone gets in anything, especially musicians, and obviously Elvis Presley, and it's the crazy story behind the story of everything. And but finding out about the Paul is dead thing.
Oh, right.
Do you know about that?
There was a rumor that Paul McCartney died.
Yes. And so as soon as you hear that, you start digging through the albums and looking for the clues. And back then, now it's on YouTube. If you look it up, I forgot. It's like a famous, I think, radio host did an episode of his show, probably in the 80s, called Paul is Dead. And, produced like this hour-long, is Paul dead? Through the next hour, we'll be looking through things to see if he actually died. And they tell the whole story. And it's insane how obviously he didn't die.
Right. He was not dead.
But all the crazy stories and clues.
Who thought he was dead?
This rumor got out that he died in a car crash.
In the 60s?
Right before Sgt. Pepper came out.
Okay.
And so starting with Sgt. Pepper, and I think the rumor came out in like probably 68 or 69 because people started looking back. And obviously when you're looking for clues for something, you're going to make a clue out of everything.
Okay.
But there's all these amazing little things on the albums and in the songs and in the lyrics and Sgt. Pepper.
That said that he might have been replaced by a clone or something,
apparently, according to the lore, the guy had won a Paul McCartney sing-along contest and they went missing. And they put him in. And then Lovely Rita's about the woman that picked him up and they died in the car together. And
wow, that's some serious fan fiction about Paul McCartney not dying.
But there's a few of them, like there's like I told you when you play Revolution No. 9 backwards. It really sounds like he's saying, "Turn me on, Deadman. Turn me on, Deadman."
Okay.
And then it's called the Sgt. Pepper Inner Groove. So there's like this little I guess the inner groove is like the part in the middle of the record that they just had this weird 5-second thing with a bunch of people saying something. You don't know what it is.
Right.
But if you do listen, you hear these little things that could be clues, and they deny it.
Sure.
But how that was so exciting when you're 14 and you're listening to this and breaking out the records and having your friends come over and listen to it the first time. And
sure. Like, and you're blowing people's minds, man. That's awesome.
That's fun.
That is fun. Jamie Flam, it has been an hour.
Has it been?
Yeah.
You were worried.
I was worried.
Was this a failure?
It was a failure. It's never a failure. It's never a failure. It's always the Dork Forest. So it's a different tree of the Dork Forest, and there's always a different angle of what we were going to talk about. So we meandered around the Beatles. I don't know anything about the Beatles. I know a little bit about them. You know more.
The only thing I'm in my head about is that you asked me for a story behind a song.
Yep.
I don't think I delivered that.
No, you did not. But here's the thing. Who cares? Wikipedia it, you guys. Rangers, you know the rules. Take care of each other out there.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that?
If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?